Hey friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping in today. I have a new layout to share for Pinkfresh Studio, and I'm going to be using the Celebrate collection today. It is full of pretty pinks and oranges and flowers. So beautiful. And I also like this gray paper. I thought it would be pretty, kind of mixed with these pinks and oranges. And I'm also going to be starting with a die, a metal die that's from Pinkfresh Studio. I've got it pulled out there. It's called the Intricate Mandala. And I wanted to start by cutting some of these shapes on my manual die cutting machine. So that's what I'm going to do. I wasn't sure what kind of design I was going to start with yet. When I have a die that I want to use, or I have something like this, it kind of helps me get an idea going. So that's why I started with this, and I thought once I got a couple of these shapes cut, then maybe it would spark an idea for me. And this particular die, as you can see, has a lot of little teeny tiny detail pieces just because of the nature of what it is. So I did have to take some time and help some of the little pieces come out, but that only took a few minutes. So I'm going to cut 3 here, and I'm actually going to wind up cutting a 4th and a 5th. I think I cut 5 on another pattern paper from this collection. But I wanted to start with pink and orange. Well, I guess you would call that orange. It's kind of like a soft peachy orange. But I love those two colors together. And so that's where I'm going to start. And I was thinking of a black and white photo for this, since I'm going to be incorporating some gray. I thought a black and white photo would really pop against all of these light and soft colors. So that's where my head is going right now. So I took a break, got all my shapes cut, and then I had this flower from the very first sheet that I showed you with the gray, and I went ahead and cut that out and thought, let me see if I can make this work. I don't know if I love this design, but there's my photo, just a cute selfie, black and white, like I said. So I think I'm going to try to make that work. Right now, that's what I'm thinking, but I'm not sure that I love it. So I'm going to put it aside, go ahead and prep a background with some clear gesso, because I definitely want to do some mixed media and some watercolor. So I'm using some Art Basics finibear clear gesso on some thick, smooth white cardstock there. And this is just going to allow me to add lots of watercolor. It's going to allow the colors to kind of run and blend and just not soak right through the page right away. Give me some time to work with it. So I took some time off, I took a little break, came back, and I wanted to incorporate this paper some way, somehow. So I thought I would fussy cut out some of these big flowers and leaves, mainly because they were gray. And like I said earlier, I wanted to incorporate some gray on this page. So I took off that big gray flower and thought, let me see if I could do something without that. And this is kind of what I came up with. And then another idea popped into my head. Yes, my brain has ADD when it comes to ideas sometimes. So yeah, I'm going to change my whole idea. And I pulled out this stamp. Yep, I was all over the place in the beginning of this layout. I could not figure out what I wanted to do. So I hadn't used this stamp yet. It's a rubber stamp, and it is called Pop Out Straight Stripes. And it's called Pop Out because you can pull out each individual stripe and create your own little stripy design there. But I'm going to leave it as is because I want a bunch of stripes just going down the center of the page. And I'm going to be using the mini ink cube from Pinkfresh Studio. It's called Rocky Slope. And this is going to start the background process. And once I got this background going, then I thought, okay, I know exactly how I'm going to do this page. And I'm just tapping the ink pad on top of the stamp, flipping it over, and this is definitely not 100% straight, and that's okay because I'm going to work on this as I go here. This was just a starting point, and since I had that idea of putting all of the mandala shapes kind of in a vertical crooked line down the page, I wanted something in the background kind of behind. So here's what I'm talking about. So you can pull these stripes out, and obviously, you know, this is a rubber stamp, so I couldn't see exactly where I was stamping, so I didn't get it perfect. I missed a couple spots. So I just peeled one of these stripes off, and then I'm just going to wing it and just kind of fill in the blanks here. And this is definitely crooked and messy, but we're going to add some water to it and kind of blend and blur some of these lines here, and I love this. Now, the gesso is what makes this possible, because if I were to just stamp this directly onto plain old cardstock, it would dry immediately and I would not be able to blur it. And you're actually going to be able to see what I'm talking about here, because if you remember, when I applied the gesso in the beginning, I didn't cover the entire sheet because I thought that I was going to be using that big flower. And so I'm going to try to blur a lot of this. And down on the lower left section, do you see where it's darker? I couldn't blur that section because that part does not have gesso. So you can definitely see a difference in the parts where the stamping was on top of gesso versus where it wasn't. So I like to make things look kind of messy and uneven, and that's why I love to do that stamping technique where you stamp it down and then you just take a wet brush and add some water to it, and then it kind of blurs it and makes it look like it was left out in the rain. I love that effect. And so now I kind of know where everything's going to go, and I want to add some more watercolor. So now I pulled out the liquid watercolors, my little paint tray there that I basically just keep all my colors in. This is the licorice, so it's the black color from the liquid watercolors, and I'm just adding a lot of water to it to dilute it to make it gray, because I'm trying to keep that gray color going on the background. And I want some watercolor areas kind of behind and around the edge of the photo, and then down there on the right by the orange circle. And I'm just using a brush, I'm dabbing it into the paint, adding a little bit of water, and you can see how I can move all that color around. See how it moves whenever I tilt the paper? It's not just soaking right through. That's because of the gesso. It just allows you to move the color around. And once it dries, it is going to dry, but you have some time to play with it and get it like you want it there. So I'm just going to continue to do that, and that's the only color that I wind up using on the background is this black color. And I actually love how it turns out, because I wanted to, like I said in the beginning, I wanted to use gray, even though I didn't wind up using the actual paper that inspired me to use the gray. And that happens a lot. I don't know why. I find a die cut or a paper or something that inspires my entire layout, and then I wind up not even using that particular piece. Go figure. So this is what I've got so far, and I wanted to add a little bit more length on some of the stripes, so I'm just going to use my little ink pad there, and I'm about to make a big boo-boo. You want to watch this? Yep, okay. Watch what happens to my ink pad here in a minute. Oh, yeah, I flipped it upside down, and then we have a big boo-boo there. Yep, I was thinking, what did I just do? And it's not going to come up. You see how it dried just that fast? That's the part of the layout that doesn't have any gesso on it. If it had gesso, I could have just wet it and then wiped it up. But yeah, be careful with your ink pads. If you don't want it to stamp down on a part of your page where it's not supposed to, oh well, I'm going to fix it later, and we're just going to press on, because I'm not throwing this background away. But yeah, that was not intentional, but that's okay. I do love how the background is looking though. I love the wonky stripes. They're not perfect. They look kind of washed out and distressed. That was the look I was going for. So I was very, very pleased with how that turned out. And I love this gray. You know, usually my backgrounds are colorful. I rarely just make, you know, a background with gray ink pad and black watercolor, but I really love how it looks, and I really love how it looks with all the other colors. So we're going to keep going. So I'm going to put everything back and see what we've got so far. I'm going to use those flowers and gray leaves that I fussy cut from that other pattern paper, and I love how they contrast with the light gray. So I've got some light gray, I've got some dark gray, and I can't remember exactly how I had those circles, of course. When I move things around back and forth, I can never remember exactly how I had them the first time, but that's okay. I'm just going to keep playing around and see what I've got. I've got, yeah, I think I've got 5 of the circles, and I think I use 4. I'm going to do some more splatters here. I'm just, again, using the licorice. That's the black watercolor. I'm just watering it down. And I love that about watercolor. I love that you can get so many different lights and darks just from one color just by diluting it, or dabbing it up really fast versus letting it dry. Okay, here's where we're going to fix my boo-boo. I'm just using a dry brush and some white acrylic paint. And it's not perfect, but you know what? Scrapbooking layouts are supposed to look homemade. Sometimes they have imperfections. This one does, and that's okay, but just white paint. And in the end, you can't even really tell. If you didn't know that I did it, you wouldn't know. See, now you can kind of pretend like that boo-boo is not there. So I think the background is kind of done. We're going to leave it alone for a little bit. I'm going to work on layering up the photo here. I'm going to layer it with some white tissue paper to start. I like that that kind of helps with a little bit more separation between the photo and the background. And I'm going to pop it up with some adhesive foam here just to give it a little bit of dimension on top of those circles. And then I've got a couple of the die cuts from the Celebrate collection pulled out, and I'm going to use one of those for a little bit of a layer behind the photo, and then I try a couple other things. I'm not sure what else I want to use or where I want it to go. I debated adding green into this layout because I hadn't planned on it, but then I found some of these green leafy die cuts and I kind of liked the addition of green, so I'm going to try a couple of those. And then I pulled out that pattern paper with all of those little tiny flowers on it and noticed these little bright pink tiny flowers, and I thought those would be a pretty little addition. So I'm going to fussy cut out several of those and place those around the photo and around sort of the middle area for now. And I really like how this is looking. I like the pops of those little hot pink flowers. So I'm going to go with that and then start to glue things down because I don't want to move everything again because I'll never get it back just like this. So I'm going to start to very slowly glue things together because I definitely like how this is looking. So we're going to go and add just little bits of glue, just enough to keep it attached for now. And then I'm going to go back later and make sure everything is really glued down. Just adding a little bit of glue behind the circles, mostly just in the center of the circles. And I want to do that just so I can kind of bend the edges up later to create a little bit more texture and dimension. So I'm going to do that. And I'm using Scotch tacky glue. I get that question quite often. That is my go-to glue in my fine liner bottle there. It works great. My favorite glue. I'm going to bend up the edges or the corners or the tips, whatever you want to call them, of some of the leaves. And that's another one of my favorite things about flowers and leaves is bending up the edges to make them look a little more dimensional. I found this die cut. It was a wreath of leaves, but I cut it in half. So I'm going to use half of it up at the top, kind of as a little edge piece there behind the circle, and then one down here at the bottom, just to add some more pops of green. Because like I said, that was a color that I wasn't even considering adding, and then once I tried it, I loved it. So we're going to go with it. I'm going to add in some thread. Of course, you know my obsession with thread. I've got some pink thread that I'm going to add. And I'm going to move this around. I first put it here under the orange circle, and then I move it. I'm going to add some green over kind of to the right corner of the photo area. I try it there, it didn't work. Then I like how it looks here. It just adds another pop of green and it adds some fun texture and just adds to the messy factor of the background, which I love. I move that pink thread underneath the right lower corner, but I do come back and add some more pink under that orange circle just because I like the pop of color that it gives. I decided to go back and add some more splatters, and so I'm mixing some yellow and some pink and a little bit of red to create, it's hard to tell here, but in the top circle and the bottom circle, there's kind of a yellowish color. It's kind of a yellowish golden color. So that's the color that I was trying to make here with the watercolor to splatter around a little bit. And I don't want this to be dark, so I'm going to make sure to roll over it with my paper towels and dab it up pretty quickly so it stays on the softer side, because I don't really want dark splatters. I want to keep everything on the lighter side for now. So I'm going to roll over those, like I said, to soften those up, and then I decide to add in some of that peachy orange color thread over to the left. I just felt like it needed a pop of that color over on that side. So I'm going to kind of wedge that in because I've already glued the photo down, so I had to be kind of careful and kind of work it around the leaves and the flowers there. But I like the pop of color that that gives on that side. And I'm going to add glue to all those little areas. And I do like to glue my thread down once I get it looped just like I want it. All right, so for my title, I'm going to use, I was trying to show you the title there, but it was kind of too dark. It's the Heather lowercase die set. And there's also a stamp set that matches this. But I'm just going to use the die set here. And I'm going to just use a little piece of scrap cardstock. And I'm going to create the word love. And my favorite thing about the alphas is you get basically 2 in 1. You get the solid letter, and then you get the outline of the letter. So you get this really thin outline, which I love. That's what I'm going to wind up using. And I'm actually going to wind up using both of them. But my intention was to just use the outline. But yeah, I love this die set. Here you can see there's the outline, and then those are the actual letters. So yeah, it's a 2-for-1 deal. So my thought was I would put the word love very subtly right here below the photo, and I love how that looks. So I thought about just leaving it like that, but it was just kind of soft. It was almost too soft. And so I thought, well, what would it look like if I put the solids inside of the outlines and kind of made them look a little messy and crooked? And I thought, I think I'm going to do that. I think that looks pretty cool. So I'm going to glue down the outlines first, and then the L and the O are going to be on top of the photo, and then the V and the E are going to be beside it. And you can't really tell. So the L and the O are a little bit higher than the V and the E, but I thought it looked cool. I don't really think it matters that they're not the same height. But I love how that looks, but I just felt like it didn't stand out enough. So I kind of ruffled up the actual letters, and then I'm going to put them crooked back inside the shape. So you're going to be able to see the solid, but you're also going to be able to see the outline. And I thought that was a cool effect. I don't know. I just liked how that looked. So I'm going to glue those down. I'm going to wind up moving the L up a little bit higher. I just felt like it was too low. It was bugging me. So we're going to move that up a little bit. There we go. And I did add My Girl. Those are some white puffy alphas from the Super Cool collection. That's that right there. And so yeah, Love My Girl, a very general title, but it's true. You know, it was just a cute little selfie, and I didn't want a very long word or a very long title because I wanted to, you know, I didn't want to cover up a lot of the stuff here. I didn't want to take the title over on top of those gray leaves, and so this was perfect. You know me, I've got to add me some crystals. I love these. I'll link these below. I'm going to link everything that I'm using down below, but I'm going to use some green, some pink, and some, they look black, but they're like a smoky charcoal gray color. Haven't used that color yet, but it was perfect for this color scheme. So yeah, I glued a bunch of those down. Crystals are great. They have flat bottoms, but little pointy tops. And each color has a couple different sizes, and they just add the perfect texture and dimension and bling and sparkle and shine. They're all clear, but you can see through them. Oh yeah, they're awesome. The jewels are similar, but they are flat on the bottom, flat on the top, and they have kind of an iridescent shimmer. So yeah, both sets are awesome. Almost done here. I'm going to add my journaling lines with my ruler there to make sure that they're straight. And then I'm using a black fine tip Sharpie for my journaling. But that is the end of this page, and there's the final layout. I love how this turned out. This was definitely not the idea that I had when I first started this page, but that's the final result, and I had a blast making it. I really love how the background turned out. Oh, there's a good shot of the mandala die and the title. And then all those little pieces that I fussy cut. But I hope this inspires you in some way. I hope this gives you some ideas to try. I really hope you'll try some mixed media with the stamping. Just give it a go. If you've got some stamps and some inks and some gesso, give it a try because it's a lot of fun to blur a stamped image and make it look watercolor-ish. I think it's a lot of fun. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and like I said, I will link everything down below so you can get it if you want it. See you next time.